Hey everybody, and Tony here with a review of the 1990 audio transmission from Rome of Donizetti's Lucia di Lammermoor, which I heard on YouTube thanks to a really awesome YouTuber by the name of Alan Rizzetti. So Alan, if you're watching this, thank you so much for the upload, and I hope you enjoyed this review. The conductor was Franco Manino, and the chorus master was Fulvio Anjus. Now, I consider this recording to be a landmark because, number one, there are no cuts, whether they're in the melodies or in the scenes themselves. When you go to any production of Lucia di Lammermoor, you'll realize that there are also some cuts in the musical pieces. The Lucia and Raimondo duet would usually be cut. The Wolf Crag scene consisting of Enrico and Edgardo would usually be cut. And the moments after Lucia finished her mad scene between Enrico, Raimondo, and Normanno would usually be cut. Which is definitely a shame because these are also really fine pieces of music, especially the Wolf Crag scene between Enrico and Edgardo. It's so epic in its execution when you have the right singers to really sing those said roles. And number two, they're all in the original pit. Starting off with Lucia's Regnava nel silenzio, sung in the key of E flat, then transitioning to Quando rapito in estasi, sung in the key of A flat. Then you have the high notes sung by Lucia and Edgardo in the Verranno a te duet, with Lucia singing a high E flat and Edgardo singing a high C, even though it was composed the other way around, where the Edgardo had to sing the high E flat and Lucia a high C. And then the duet with Lucia and Enrico being performed in the key of A major, where the Lucia also has to lunge a high E before the end of the duet, and Enrico culminates it with a high A. Then the most thrilling of it is the mad scene in the key of F, as sopranos would usually perform it in the key of E flat. Now, to have this done in the key of F is a very rare feat, and very few sopranos have been able to accomplish said tasks, like Lillipon, Magdi Mesple, of course, Mariella Devia, Ruth Welting, and of course what we have today with Sarah Coburn. And it's a very rare feat, because when you think about it, not only do these said coloratura sopranos have to sing all the high notes, but it becomes a lot more taxing on their voice compared to a lot of sopranos who would sing the mad scene in the key of E flat. I have no problem with that, but it's just more thrilling when I hear any soprano sing the mad scene in the key of F, thus culminating the whole shebang after Spargi d'Amarapianto with a high F. Okay, now that rambling is out of the way, let's get on to the singers, starting off with the wonderful and scintillating Mariella Devia as Lucia. Now, what more can be said about Mariella Devia as Lucia? This has been one of her hugest signature roles of all time, and I especially love her in this recording. She has a pure and limpid tone with such fine high notes that are just so lovely and soft that I definitely feel very excited when she sings them. And her duet with Alfredo Kraus as Edgardo in Verranno a te was just so gorgeous, with the two singers emitting those high notes with the best of their abilities, and they just did it wonderfully. And with her mad scene, I definitely enjoyed it. She sang it with such perfection and such charm and such awe that it was just thrilling. Yes, that's the word I'm using for this entire performance of Mariella Devia as Lucia. Absolutely thrilling. You could really hear the fearlessness that she has in her voice. And even though I would have loved to hear her sing a high F after the Lucia and Raimondo duet, I have to really give my hat off to her for what she had to offer. It was a true test of musicianship and theatricality that I was just totally in awe of everything she had to offer. Then we go to Edgardo, sung by the late, great Alfredo Kraus, who, even though he was 63 in this recording, was still in superb voice. Not a lot of tenors in that age could really perform this amazingly, and it just proves of just how much of an evergreen tenor Alfredo Kraus truly was, maintaining that youthful and fresh quality in his voice and really hitting the high notes very well, especially an interpolated D flat in which the Lucia would usually sing it alone. He just joins up with her, and it's just so magnificent. And even though I would have loved to hear him sing a high D after Tu Que Hario, I still have to give my hat off to this wonderful gentleman for really giving it his all and really throwing himself into this role and really being a true inspiration to a lot of aspiring tenors and to a lot of the tenors out there of just how much longevity can really bring a career to such fine levels, and he was no exception. He was definitely a fine role model to a lot of tenors, to a lot of different singers, and to a lot of musicians, and he really proves it in this recording. Then we go to Enrico, sung by Roberto Serville, who has a very sturdy and fine timbre to his voice, with excellent high notes, and an overall roughness and toughness that he brings to this role. He does make him rather dashing, but it's his roughness and toughness and rumble and tumble that really make him come alive as Enrico, especially evidenced in the duet of the Wolf Crag between Edgardo. And he did very fabulously with Alfredo Kraus as the Edgardo, really singing to the best of their abilities. Then we have Raimondo, sung by Aureo Tomitzich, who has a very gorgeous and plush basso cantante voice, but at times it sounds rather sedate in a lot of occasions. But I still have to give my hat off to him for being a very fine musician and for having a very focused instrument, which he used very, very well. Tiziana Tramonti as Alisa was gorgeously sung, and she made the best out of this fine character role, helped with a clear, limpid voice and a very fine timbre, which she used very, very well, which is so silvery and absolutely gorgeous. Claudio Di Segni's Arturo was also wonderfully sung, using his fine lyric tenor voice to really make the best out of this thankless character. Tullio Panes Normanno was also finely sung. Even though he does show a bit of aging in his voice, I still had to give him credit for what he had to offer and his very fine musicianship. So overall, the singing was absolutely star-studded, and the conducting done by Franco Manino was absolutely well done. So overall, what more can I say about this entire audio transmission of Donizetti's Lucia di Lammermoor? If you haven't heard this transmission already, then the link of the entire transmission is on the description box below, so please check it out. It is highly recommended, and for that matter, I wish that a lot of opera companies would also perform Donizetti's Lucia di Lammermoor with no cuts and with all of the numbers sung in the original key, because that is definitely a huge blessing. I know it's also going to be a huge challenge, especially for the sopranos who would sing the mad scene in the key of F, but it's such a thrilling result, and it's something that is definitely so much fun, and something that is beyond interesting, but something that is just a huge landmark that opera companies should make Lucia be performed in the original keys, because who knows, we would really love to hear how Donizetti actually wrote it with all of the high notes being used by the singers. So it is absolutely imperative that a lot of opera companies would perform Lucia di Lammermoor in all of the original keys, without any cuts whatsoever, and just promising a lot of technical prowess from all the singers. And this is why I highly consider this 1990 recording starring Mariana Devia and Alfredo Kraus in Donizetti's Lucia di Lammermoor as an absolute landmark, because you really have to hear it to believe it. And maybe in the future, maybe we have to see any production which has all the original keys and with no cuts being performed to even see it and hear it to believe it. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in later for my review of Wagner's Die Walküre live from the Bayreuther Festspielhaus through an audio transmission. So until then, have a great day, everybody.